Well, Beshear has decided to give $250 million up front for this deal. He's decided to take $250 million from our taxpayers and give it to this economic project up front. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to another week, another episode that means of the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your illustrious host, Andrew Cooperrider, your favorite candidate for Kentucky State Treasurer, the only one worth voting for, if I do say so myself, and I do say so. Now, today's episode, I have one particular goal: to not say the words "I told you so" ever. Because, of course, you who listen and follow know what I've said and done, and you guys are with me. So you're not the ones I'd be saying "I told you so" to. It would be the others. And, of course, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about two specific issues that, once again, reared their ugly head this week. And that is HB8 from 2022 session, which is, once again, the for those who don't know what I mean by rearing its ugly head, ugly might be a harsh tone for the bill because we're going to talk about some of that side of things. But the bill that is causing a lot of hoopla over people getting taxed on their utilities, on second domiciles in this case, but the utilities tax. Additionally as well, we have a lot to cover on the Ford deal. Once again, the $410 million taxpayer dollar handout to Ford has once again also caused some issues, some hoopla, and we shall cover that as well. Before I get into that, though, please hit the like, hit the comment, hit the share, hit the subscribe. Do everything you can to get the word out there. Additionally as well, you can donate to the Treasurers Campaign at C4KY.com. That's C, the number 4KY.com. If you're watching this in the video form and you say, I like what this guy has to say, but I got to get going, you can always listen to us in the podcast one, on the Spotify's and the Apple. And of course, YouTube, Facebook is where we're playing at with video. So without further ado, let's dig into it. So let's talk about this utility bill. Now listen, everybody is not getting a sales tax increase on their utilities. You're getting that tax if you have a second domicile. So if you own another home that you're paying utilities on, then you will have to pay tax on that other home. Really, the people who are mainly affected by this are people who own a home in Kentucky but claim a residence probably elsewhere, where they're not residents of Kentucky. That it hits them a little bit. Of course, it'll hit some of your mom and pop rentals as well. Your all utilities paid apartments, those are going to see an increase in pricing due to this, and a few others. But it does call into question the bill that led to this, House Bill 8. Now, House Bill 8 was a tax reform bill. Now, at the time, and continues, Republicans will call this a tax cut. It was not a tax cut. In fact, the bill was actually a tax increase overall. At least that was my argument at the time. And actually, to help sum up what my issues were with this bill, here's a little outtake from when I was running in the state Senate. And I was an outspoken individual who was outspoken against House Bill 8, this bill that caused these taxes here. And let's take a look at this video from me almost 8 months ago now, in 1 minute explaining why I had so many issues or why I had an issue with the bill.
As a follow-up to that particular question, Mr. Cooperrider, this will go to you. This session, the General Assembly passed tax reform and began the process of eliminating the income tax while expanding the tax base. Please state your opinion on the income tax and why Kentucky should or should not eliminate it.
You know, I find income tax to be immoral. It's immoral that the government gets its cut before you ever get to put food on your table. That's wrong. That's plain wrong. You know, the tax reform bill passed this year had certain markers in it that would back down the income taxes by 0.5 percentage point as we hit certain markers. Had good intentions. However, the bill, in order to hit those markers, required revenues to go up. In fact, it requires revenues to go up 70% into the general fund in order to eliminate income tax. Now, government, the state government, doesn't print money. It only comes from one place, and that's the taxpayer. That means if revenues are going up into your government, guess what? Your overall tax burden is going up. It's simple as that. And so while I agree we need to look at tax reform, we need to be looking at reducing our budget in the process instead of passing bills that require a budget to go up. We're supposed to be smaller government. We're Republicans. Why do we keep increasing our budget?
So as I covered in that answer, the first thing you got to understand about the bill in question was it was working towards eliminating our income tax. Something, as I stated, I am complete and utter support of, because I find, not sales tax, sorry, income tax, eliminating income tax. Something I'm in support of because I find income tax to be immoral, as I said in that video. I find it to be immoral because I think it's wrong that before you get to feed yourself or your family, the government's getting its cut. I believe when the founders said that our government was instituted to protect our rights to life, liberty, and property, they meant it, which means that if you need to feed your family, domicile, take care of things like that, the government should be waiting in line, not getting in line first, getting their cut with the income tax. Additionally, as well, follow me here, okay? If you owe anybody any of your labor, right? So let's say you had to work and you didn't earn any money. You had to give 100% of your wages to someone else. Well, that has a term. That would be called slavery, right? But as you start to give more money, less money, and you get to start to pocket it, what line does it become too much? At what time are you indentured to your government way too much? I think we've well surpassed that line of course. And so what they're attempting to do with House Bill 8 in 2022, what they're attempting to do was to do a stair-step program. So basically, they were going to move our income taxes at 5%. Now it's at 4.5%. It should go down to 4% this year. And basically stair-step down as long as we hit certain revenue targets. And this additional revenue being brought in was being generated by new categories of sales tax, one of which was on second domicile utilities. But let me read off all the areas where you're now paying sales tax at, 6% sales tax at, that you weren't before. I'm going to read this off. So let's jump into it. Okay. New taxable services. Okay. Photography and photo finishing services. Marketing services, telemarketing services, public opinion and research polling services, lobbying services, executive employee recruitment services, website design and development services, website hosting services, private mailroom services, bodyguard services, residential and non-residential security system monitoring services, private investigation services, process server services, repossession of tangible personal property services, personal background check services, parking services, road and travel services provided by automobile clubs like AAA, condominium timeshare exchange services, rental of space for meetings, conventions, short-term business uses, entertainment, weddings, banquets, parties, and other short-term social events, social event planning and coordination services, leisure, recreational, and athletic instructional services. So that's like your, personal training. In fact, actually it says personal fitness training services, recreational camp tuition and fees, massage services, except when medically necessary, cosmetic surgery services, body modification services,
testing services, interior decorating and design services, household moving services, specialized design services. I'm going to slaughter that word. Cutting, polishing, and engraving precious stones is the service description. Labor and services to repair or maintain commercial refrigeration equipment and systems when no tangible personal property is sold in that transaction. Labor to repair or alter apparel, footwear, watches, or jewelry when no tangible personal property is sold in that transaction. Pre-written computer software access services. There's a grandfather provision that HB8 would exclude from tax gross receipts derived from the new taxable class of services. When a sold and fulfillment of lump sum, fixed fee contract, or fixed price sales contract executed before February 25th, 2022. Okay, so they bring in these new taxes. Now, one thing you're going to notice about almost all those taxes, almost all of them, is not almost all of them, but a lot of them, they're actually taxes on B2B services, business to business services. Here's why. Okay, when an individual is getting directly taxed in a way they see, like on the utilities situation that we saw, that, you know, is true, not true. I mean, you got to fill out a form and stuff, and that seems like a hassle. But it makes people realize that there's that tax out there. But when there's a B2B service tax between businesses, nobody really complains about it. Here's why. Businesses just figure it into their cost of doing business, and that is then foreseen into your final cost of product. So for an example, if my marketing now goes up 6% costs at my company, guess what that means? My prices are going to go up too as well, because I keep the same percentage of gross profit margin. It's how my businesses are built. It's how any good business is designed and made. That's how we run our budgets. We have a gross profit margin that we're trying to maintain. That means any additional cost to doing business gets passed on to the consumer. But of course, it's not a item line in your receipt like sales tax typically is. So therefore, you're unaware you're paying it. Now, as I argued at the time, this is a tax increase. No matter how many different ways we cut it, the average person, the average person, the Kentucky taxpayer is paying more. How do I know? Kentucky has a constitutional amendment to have a balanced budget. That means we cannot spend more money than we take in. So, unless we have a cut in spending, and in fact, the stair-stepping of this bill, in order to get to 0% income tax, required us to have a 70% increase in our general fund. So we'd had to have 70% more in revenues. Which means that if we have more revenues, this is the point I made, we have to be taxing more. We can't print money. We have a balanced budget. Unless we are spending less, and as long as we keep spending more, you're being taxed more. That's how it works. I'm telling you, that's how it works. Because we have a balanced budget, because that money doesn't come from anywhere else. As long as the state of Kentucky continues to increase its budget, you are paying more in taxes. And they cut it up 10 different ways so you don't see it. Now, I've said my piece about the bill. I've said my piece of why I was against the bill. I do believe there's a good faith argument for those who voted for the bill. I know what you're saying. You're saying, Andrew, I've never heard you defend people who went against you on how bills went, but I'm going to defend them, okay? Threefold reasons. First, let's deal with the most important reason always, and that's the philosophical thought process behind your decisions. What are your principles? What are you staying to? So it is possible that you look at this and say, look, it is working us to getting rid of the income tax. And I could see a thought process of saying, hey, it's not perfect, but we can come back, we can work on it. We can continue to reduce this. It's hard for the government to just be pulled off its weaned of services without cutting services. And people don't like cutting services, so at least we're moving in the right direction for taxing that's based around the economy. I don't like the increase in pricing, but we're moving in the right direction. I would say you could make that argument. I could hear that argument. I wouldn't necessarily... I would disagree with the idea that you can come in and fix it, because I hear that all the time. Let's pass the bill and then we'll kind of tinker with it later on. The problem is the process to get it tinkering through the system that we have, the system with the with the committee hearings and then the subs and everything else, it's very difficult to get something through. And so I don't like this idea of we'll tinker with it later on. That's just my opinion. I don't like it. But you hear people talking about it. But I can see the argument on the philosophical side. I can also see an argument on the political side. Because here's the deal, right? As you're listening to this, let me ask you, do you remember a campaign ad? Do you remember maybe your local state house rep or state senator? Maybe one of those people giving a speech where they said, I cut taxes. I worked to cutting the income tax. Do you guys remember that speech? And you remember how when they said it, when they said, we passed income tax reform, we're getting rid of our income tax. And if you were in a room where they said it, you remember how, what everybody do? Oh yes, amazing. Clapped. They clapped for it. Because technically, I guess that is true. And so politically, by voting yes on this, you get to claim you cut taxes. And I'm sure you all saw the TV ads where all these politicians that voted yes on this said, and I cut taxes and worked on tax reform. I'm sure you all saw it. And you all saw it, and chances are most of you, because this is very, I would call it inside baseball. You got to really track what's going on. I mean, this bill was 250. Let me tell you. 208 pages long. Over 200 pages in a bill. You can't. You're not going to read through that like I did to understand what's in it. You rely on them being straightforward and honest and doing the right thing. Are they being dishonest when they say they cut tax? No. But of course, they're not telling the whole story. They're not being honest. I guess they're withholding information. They're leaving out the fact that they then increase sales taxes in other places. In places maybe you wouldn't see because, of course, most people voted yes for it. Now, here goes into why would they vote yes for it, too, politically. Because if you vote no, the attack would have been, could have been, has been. I think Maddox, she voted no on the veto override and then the Senate sub. So for those who don't know, a bill can leave the House, go to the Senate, or vice versa, and then they change it in that body. Then it goes back for concurrence to the last body. Just the whole body votes on whether or not they agree with the Senate changes. Savannah did not like the Senate changes, voted no on that bill both times. And I bring that up because I believe, unless I'm mistaken, in Savannah's House race this past year, Savannah Maddox's House race this past year, there was a mailer ran against her saying she voted against lowering taxes, which is technically true. She voted against lowering income tax because it would have required a tax increase elsewhere. That's why she voted no on it. That's why a lot of these people voted no. That's why I was against the bill. But the thing is that so your political, so you've got the principled side. You could make a principle argument. The political argument, 100% in favor of voting yes. You appease the big government Republican establishment hacks, while also you get to run on, I cut taxes. And then if you don't vote yes, they're going to hit you with, they didn't cut taxes. And really that has to do with the fact that bad legislation comes from, I believe, a voting electorate that is easily duped with 30-second ads and mailers that don't ask the questions like you guys do and like voters should of what does that mean? You say you cut taxes, but when I look at my bank account, I don't feel like there's more money in it. What does that mean? What are they saying? Once again, am I saying they're a bad Republican, a horrible person if they voted yes on HB8? No, I'm not. I'm saying they can make an argument why they were for it, and I can respect the difficult decision. But part of the reason why they were in a difficult decision as they're looking at it is because they're afraid that the voters back home won't understand the nuance and they're going to get attacked left and right for voting yay or nay on a situation, on a bill. And so they're sometimes afraid to vote the right way. Is that right? No. I'm saying politicians should be more principled, but it does put them in difficult situations where they're going to have to figure out how to do the explaining thing a whole lot. That can be hard. That can be difficult. And by what I mean by that is that, you know, I always reflect on this. There was this moment. I was at an event. I was at a town hall, and Representative Kim King, and Representative Matt Lockett were at this town hall, and they were asked about a bill that I think came out in 2021, which was House Bill 563, which was a educational opportunities account. Matt Lockett started the bill. Kim King voted no on the bill. Why'd she vote no on the bill? I can think of 100 different reasons why Kim King voted no on the bill. But I can promise you the real reason wasn't what she was stated, because her stated reason was because it created a slush fund for rich parents to send their kids to private schools. She says that. The bill sponsor, and everybody who's read the bill says, no, actually, it clearly says that if you donate into these educational opportunity accounts, you cannot be a recipient of one. So it does the exact opposite. It expressly forbids rich people from benefiting from it that donate to it. But see, if you're not surrounded by people who know that and can call them out on that, and be like, well, hold on here, that's not exactly what it does. Then the nuance is lost and they can make wild statements and people will believe them. Because, well, I mean, do you really want to go around distrusting every single person? No, of course not. Of course not. Moving on my... Oh, I promise not to say the word. Moving on my... I called it. Situation here. So I'm going to talk about... in the special session of 2021, we had the Ford deal vote take place. Ford was given to build the battery plant here in Kentucky. Ford is being given $410 million taxpayer dollars to build this Ford plant. And recently, Beshear's come under some fire for how they're handing this out. Now, once again, Andrew Cooperrider was against this bill when it came down. Why? Once again, I refuse to believe it's ever a good idea to give away $410 million taxpayer dollars to a private company. Two, I distinctively disagree with what the role of government is there, and I just don't think, frankly, that's the role of government, to be handing out money like that. I just don't. Sorry, I just don't. And so, naturally, I'm going to be thinking that this is going to go sour. Well, there's some new information coming out about this, but not to be set off here. I've got a screenshot here from September 23rd, 2021, where I distinctly had called out this as a bad situation. So this was almost now over a year ago, and I said many elected Republicans across the state are defensive of the vote to give an unknown company $410 million. Remember, at the time, they didn't know who they were giving the money to, and they didn't know what the project was. Okay, so that's right. Your legislators voted to give $410 million to an unknown company. Now, they say this will be another Toyota and economic boom for the area. I hope this is true. I still hope this is true. But they need to understand why members of the party would be upset. When you join a party, it is the platform that you are supporting, not the individuals in the party. It is the job of the members of that party to hold its people accountable to its platform. Considering the below quotes, one could see how the Republican legislature violated its own platform. It should not come as a surprise that some are upset. Here's quotes from the Republican Party platform. Government cannot create prosperity, though government can limit or destroy it. Prosperity is the product of self-discipline, enterprise, saving, and investment by individuals, but it is not an end in itself. Prosperity provides a means by which citizens and their families can maintain their independence from government, raise their children by their own values, and practice their faith and build communities of cooperation and mutual respect. That's some good stuff. Man, I love the Republican Party platform. Good stuff. Wish we followed it more. We'll continue this. This is another portion. We will not divide the American people into winners and losers. We will eliminate as many special interest provisions and loopholes as possible and curb corporate welfare. That's from the platform. So I continue on in this post. How could this situation be handled by following the platform? Recognize that the same reasons you need to give $410 million to operate in Kentucky is the same reasons they're holding back all companies in Kentucky. Eliminate regulation, overtaxation, and the corruption that holds companies back from flourishing naturally in the Commonwealth. That is something, once again, I said that over a year ago about this. Why do I bring it up now? Well, let's take a little look-see here. So the WDRB article in question, titled, now this is WDRB, right? Keep in mind, this is no bastion of conservative thought. This is nobody out here who's going to be super pushing for a tax on Beshear. But this is their headline. Kentucky's EV battery deal carries big costs for taxpayers. The biggest economic development deal in Kentucky history also comes with what is likely the most generous corporate subsidy the state has ever offered. What are they talking about? Well, Beshear has decided to give $250 million up front for this deal. He's decided to take $250 million from our taxpayers and give it to this economic project up front. This is not how this is normally done. Normally they have certain construction deadlines they got to meet. There's certain points they have to meet, agreed upon things. They don't get 250 up front. But instead he has done it. And now when challenged on this, he says, well, we've got signed contracts. Because we've never seen corporations go to court and fight over signed contracts. You give them your $250 million, they're not hitting it. You try to yank it back, they're going to court. And you're going to end up spending millions more of taxpayer dollars to try to get it back. But instead you got to give it up front, which begs the question, why? Ford's got a lot of money in the bank. Why giving the cash up front? When's the last time we gave money up front on a project? It was Brady Industries. Bevan got drugged up and down about Brady Industries and how it flopped and how $13 million of taxpayer dollars ended up with them. This is $250 million. $250 million. Has a lot of people asking questions, as they should be. Has anybody asked the important question too? How long is it going to take for us to make back our $410 million? It's going to be 6 years just for them to build the plant. On top of that, our auto industry exports right now with Toyota having Corolla and Lexus, or not Corolla, the Camry, Lexus, and as such, mixed with, of course, Ford has a F-250 and Expedition plant. Mixed with both of that, you know how much? $2.5 billion. If this battery plant brings in $500 million a year, I'll be shocked. How much is the state going to make off that? 10? 5% maybe gross off the gross? If it's 5% on $500 million, That's $25 million a year. To pay back $410 million. That's 16.4 years. Plus the 6-7 years it's going to take for them to build the thing. Like I said, this is going to be a long road till maybe we finally get to the point where we see whether or not this deal works out for the good or the bad. But unfortunately, there keeps being a lot of questions about this deal. Questions that should have been answered, frankly, beforehand. But I digress. Well, guys, that's what we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us. Please check out the campaign, c4ky.com. Donate today, give, share, everything else. Thank you guys so much for joining me.